be honest with myself. Although the Rav's son might want to, if we want to zoom it and then save the recording and then upload it, that might be a plan.
Just do do what you're doing right here.
But if you wanted to watch it live,
He wants to watch it live?
maybe.
Well, yeah, I told him to send them. He's in Florida.
Would you prefer to watch it live? Or just,
No, I don't know. Okay.
It's not gonna happen today, but
Yeah, okay. Okay.
if he wants, we can.
Ready to start?
I assume we can do.
Okay, so we're up to Perek Lamed Beis,
There we go.
just to see where we left off. The last week we had tremendous Yesod, which goes from the beginning of the Perek, beginning of the Tanya. We know that there are two focuses in our neshama. We could focus on a nefesh l'kis or nefesh bahamas. The nefesh bahamas, that's easily recognizable. That's all about us, the self, the ego. If you look in the dictionary, under S and E and L and F, self, there's 250 words that start with the word self. That's how much the world is into self. That's the nefesh bahamas. And when you get into self-centered, you can never be satisfied. Whatever you have is never enough. You can never satisfy yourself. In fact, even if you have happiness from something you did or you got, or a thrill, it doesn't last long. When you're in self, you're in sadness. They actually did a study on people who won lottery tickets, and they said that the happiness bump lasts for 6 months. For 6 months, you're ecstatic, you win $10 million lottery, and after 6 months, it wears off. And then you're back to lack of happiness and trying to find something else. You can never satisfy yourself.
What if you win one immediately again?
What?
What if you win a lottery immediately again?
The only thing we say in benching, before benching, Ozimol is Choykinu Shunenu Rino on Shabbos, right? It says when Mashiach will come, they describe the happiness will be constant laughter. And they give the description, imagine you won the lottery ticket. And okay, you have immediate happiness. But the happiness has to grow, otherwise it gets weak. So the next minute you're winning something more that makes that previous one nothing compared to in Lasad Lava, every minute there's going to be like a new win. And we'll be in a constant state of growing more happy and happy. It's hard even to imagine it, but Hashem had this prepared. And he knows what he's doing. And you can't even understand it, but Bez Hashem, it's coming soon. So we learned last week that the people, while we were trying to break the nefesh bahamas when it gets in the way and it blocks us from serving Hashem, and the idea is to go away from the self and to focus on the neshama. The more less of me, the more we can be happy. The more we go away from us individually as a metzias, as a nefesh bahamas, as self. The more we live the self and focus on the neshama, on the nefesh kiss part of us, the greater we will have, the greater we will see happiness. That's the secret to happiness. The focus, because we have two parts of our life. We have our godly part of life, and we have our human self part of life. And we just have to direct ourselves to the nefesh kiss, to the godly part, and then that's why when they do the statistics, they find that the religious Jews are the happiest people in the world, because they're connected to not to the self, they're connecting themselves more to the ruchnius. It doesn't have to mean all day. If a person even has a seder once a day, an hour a day, whatever it may be, a little bit of Torah, then that's the lifeline. So that's what we've been learning in the last Perek. And now we get Perek Lamed Beis. Perek Lamed Beis stands out in a way. Perek Lamed Beis. So we said also one more thing in the last Perek. That happiness, because we're talking about Simcha. The last few Parakim and after Lamed Beis, the next few Parakim, we're still talking about Simcha. We first talk about distractions, what takes away from Simcha in the physical world, Parnasa, health, this and that, and deal with that. Then we spoke about spiritual things that are blocking ourselves from Simcha, the self. We said, knock it down, be mavatal the self. Doesn't mean you should be nothing. when we say that we should mevatel ourselves and leave the self behind, it means just the nefesh bahamas part. But the Swarm says you're supposed to have two things in your hand. You have to have one thing that says Bishvili Nivra Olam in one hand, and Ani off of Ephraim. You have to have both. You have to have both. You can't be mevatel yourself and be nothing. Then you're not going to do anything. Hashem gave us a job here, and not only gave us a job, He chose us. That means we're the most important thing in the bria. There's nothing greater than us. Every individual has to realize that we're the Ben Yochad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're the ultimate. I don't know how to describe it. The most important thing in the entire bria is every individual. And you have to have that at the same time as you have the bittul, because it's come from two different parts of the neshama. And sometimes, when you knock down the nefesh abahamis, when you have sadness and you come out of the sadness, you focus on your nefesh l'kis that has been captive inside of you, and you want to release it, as we said last week. You see us with Mitzrayim, and bring out your neshama, focus on your neshama, and move away from yourself. That's the ultimate happiness that comes from the darkness, from the sadness. And this topic will continue another few parakim, but Perek Lamed Beis is a very interesting Perek. It's really a fill-in Perek. Meaning, if you looked at the original fuss of the Tanya, there wasn't no Perek Beis, Lamed Beis. In the Madura Kama, it's not. They printed now the Madura Kama, the first edition of the Tanya, and this is not there. On the other hand, some say this is the lave of the whole time. This is the most important parak of the entire time. Puts it all together in a very practical way. So it's there, but it's we're going to step back out of our discussion to show something else that comes from this idea of focusing on neshama rather than ourselves. And it's actually apropos. Perek Lamed Beis Leiv has to do with Ahavas Yisrael, and Ahavas Yisrael is an excellent thing to work on in this Yimei HaSfira, when we have to work in Amidas. And we know that we're in Golus because we have the Sinas Chinam. So the way to get out of Golus is by having Ahavas Chinam to Ahava to everybody. And we're going to learn this by how to have Ahava. What kind of Ahava do we mean? The Baal Shem Tov says, Ahavas Yisrael that we have to have, believe it or not, is you have to have the Ahava to the biggest Rasha of a year, the Yiddish Rasha, I'm talking about Goyim, like the biggest Tzaddik. That's the level of Ahava you have to have for another Yid. Doesn't matter his matzav, doesn't matter where he's standing, what happened to him. And we're going to learn that how do we have such a thing? If we identify with our neshama, it leads to two things. It leads to the simcha that we spoke about last week, and it's going to lead to Ahavas Yisrael, which we're going to talk about in this parak. So, the first thing is, before we start, let's start with the first paragraph. If we fulfill what we just explained in the last parak, to look at his self, the person's self, his ego, his nefesh bahamas, and to put that aside and not focus on that, and to lower it. But lift up the flame as neshama, and make his ikr about his neshama, which is what our goal in life is, to work on our neshama. Because it's just secondary for the neshama. If you do that, this will be very easy to lead you into the key mitzvahs we have to every single Jew, from the biggest tzaddik to the smallest one who has no schusim at all. Now, before we go further, the mitzvah of Yahav is the most difficult to understand mitzvah. Let's analyze these three magic words that everybody knows. First word is v'yahavta. Have love. How do you tell somebody to love something? You can tell somebody to do something. You can tell somebody to think about something. You could tell someone to change their behavior, but you can't tell someone to have an emotion. How do you tell someone v'yahavta? That's the first thing. How do you command someone? Someone likes chocolate, and I want you now to like vanilla. Now, how do you do that? So the first problem is understanding what the word v'ahavta means.
How does this compare to Shema? Yehavta es Hashem Elokecha.
So it's the same.
Same
There,
concept.
no, there it's a little bit different. Because there, it's the same. The question is the same. How do you have a tzivui of v'ahavta? The answer was in Shema. The tzivui is to think about things that develop the ahava.
Do the actions that lead to.
Before what do we say before v'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha? It says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When Shema means Lashon Havana, Shema means not only hearing, but hearing in your neshama. When you say these words, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is our God, Hashem Echad, and Hashem is the only thing in the world. When you think about that, all of a sudden, you're going to build up the ahava. So the tzivui is not on the emotion, the tzivui is on the things to
playbook
think
is there.
about.
Right.
Exactly, that emotion. But over here, we're going to see in a certain way as well. But the first question is, Pashut, how do you have a tzivui and a hava itself? Here we don't say Shema beforehand. Just we're plain say hava. Reyacha. That's not an easy one. Reyacha means even a nudnik that's bothering you all the time, or some guy out there that's causing you headaches, you have to love him. And then the biggest problem is kamaycha. I mean, the strong instinct that we have is loving ourselves. Every human being essentially loves himself. There's no one in this world that doesn't love himself and is greater than any other love. Even a guy who's thinking of committing suicide, chas v'shalom, he still loves himself inherently. He just wants to kill himself because he loves himself so much he can't handle the pain or whatever he's going through, so he wants to take his life. But he's only doing it because he loves himself. So the ahava for a person, for himself, self-love, there's no reason for it. It's boundless. Since there's no reason for it, there's no end to a person's love for himself. So how can you say that you should have re'acha kamocha like you? There's no one like you. A person loves himself inherently. Somebody else is going to be tlui b'davar. Maybe get something out of him. Maybe benefit from him. You maybe depend on him for something. The love of anybody else is tlui b'davar. So how can we have in this words v'ahavta re'acha kamocha? What is the Torah telling us? How do we have such a ahava? The only ahava that we have that is similar to ourselves is our family. Our children, our parents, our wife, because that's part of self-love. That's part of the self. Part of your family, your children, your grandchildren, your parents. So they're an extension of yourself. It's not tlui b'davar. It's part of your essential ahava. But le'reyacha, who's not your family, somebody out there, that everyone else should have love for them. That's very difficult to understand. They tell a story. There was a guy who hava tlui b'davar. What is a hava? The guy, this fisherman, and he found a beautiful pike, and he was told that the poets in his town love pike, and this was the most beautiful pike they ever found. He said, "This is something I got to give to the poets. We'll make him happy. We'll be happy with us for the next who knows how many years." So he put the pike in a box of ice, set it up, traveled to the poets, and the pike was still alive. Was overhearing what was going on, and he figured, he heard the poets loves pike. He figured when he gets to the poets' house, they'll have a nice, beautiful pool where they'll be able to swim and good food and whatever. Rings the bell. The god says, "What are you here?" He says, "Oh, I want to show the poets I have this beautiful pike." He looks and says, "Oh, the poets are going to love it." The fish was so excited, even though it was freezing cold, shivering in there. But he figured in a few minutes he'll be. They bring it to the poets. The poets looks at it and said, "This is unbelievable. I love it." And tells his servant, said, "Take it to the kitchen, chop off the head. I want you to grind it and prepare it, and I'll eat it for dinner." And the guy chalished, the fish chalished, and before he made a few sounds. He said, "Poets, you don't like pike, you like yourself." That's a ahava tlui b'davar. Anyway, the idea is that how do you do that? So the Palatine is going to tell us that it depends how you look at the Re'acha Kamocha. If you recognize that we have different bodies and different parts, but the neshama part, we all have one neshama. The Arizal says that all the Shishim Riboy neshamas of Klal Yisrael emanate from one neshama, a guy by the name of Adam Rishon. B'shas Achet, some of his chelik and neshama fell, that became the nations of the world, and others went up. But we come from the part of Adam Rishon, and we're all part of under one umbrella thing. And if we look at another Yid and not look at his guf or his self and his Nevesh Bahamas, but look at the fact, focus on the neshama, redirect our thought, just like we're directing ourselves to our neshama, and we bring out simcha. If we looked at the next guy and we look at his neshama, then all of a sudden there's going to be a tremendous closeness. It'll be like self.
How do you do that?
What?
How do you do that?
By simply becoming godly instead of self. If the more we move ourselves from the self, the more we have, like we say, bittul, we vatal ourselves, and we get into the real issue that we're here shlichim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the service of Hashem. So then we're all together in this. They bring down that's a very big inyan to learn Musar, not alone, but with somebody else. And it was Baal Shem, one of the tzaddikim said, when you learn with somebody else the Sefer Musar, then it's two nefesh l'kis against one nefesh Bahamas. That the math, somebody didn't do the right math. You do the two guys sitting together learning the Sefer, each guy has a nefesh against nefesh Bahamas. So it's 2 against 2. How come it's 2 against 1? And the answer is, the Nefesh Bahamas, when two people are sitting together, the Nefesh Bahamas is only thinking about himself, not the guy next to him. So, when they're learning a sefer how to deal with the Nefesh Bahamas, this guy's Nefesh Bahamas, the other guy's Nefesh Bahamas is not going to mix in. So I don't care what this guy does with himself, I'm only interested in myself. But the Nefesh L'kis, he cares about both of them, because they're both. So when you put two Jews together, you got two Nefesh L'kis versus one Nefesh Bahamas, and therefore you could overcome it. So that's another way how to go about it. The main thing is to focus on the neshama. So as the Baal Tanya says over here, when a person, after reading the last paragraph, looks down, but doesn't allow the guf to block himself, and then he looks at another person. If he looks at another Jew, we don't know where that neshama that your friend has. You maybe have a very high neshama, in the highest levels. Every neshama is different. Terach had a son, Avram. Avram came from Terach, and we see that where the family comes from is not a raya where the neshama comes from. Person can have a child that can have a neshama from Atzilus. That's not within the purview of the parents. So you never know what the neshama of another yid is. B'shagam shekulam asimas, even though in a certain madrega everyone is all part of one thing. As we said, since if you just use your neshama glasses and you see everyone from their neshama point, then everybody's all part of one holistic thing, and that's the secret how to build Havas Yisrael, by looking at the Yisrael as the Chelik Elakav. It's one of the things I think we mentioned in the past. Everyone knows the story with Meir Shapiro, with the wireless case, where the Goyim. Did I mention it in this year? Yeah, I think we're talking about it. She said that Atam Krim Adam, we're called Adam, not Goyim, because we are like one Adam. All of us together are like one. And therefore it bothers us if some guy in Europe is being put on trial for whatever, it's going to bother every Jew across the world, because we're all Abba Chesel Chalana, we're all one big family. Whereas the Goyim, each one is an individual, So he doesn't care what the guy next door neighbor does or what happens to him. He's a complete person on his own. He's not connected to the other guy. And so it's only that we have different Ragufa Mechulakim, but our neshama is all one. Bottom line is, if a person in his life is thinking about himself more than his neshama, he cannot have ahavas Yisrael. One is connected with the other. One is totally connected to the next thing, to the other thing. And one second. Oh, just a page here. Right, okay. V'zeh she'amar Hillel HaZaken, al ki mitzvah zu zeh kol haTorah kula. V'after l'riach kamocha is the shorsh of the whole Torah. V'idich purushu. That's also another very strange statement. Obviously, Yisrael is ben olam chavera. In the Torah, you have mitzvahs that are ben olam chavera, ben olam makom. You tell me that obviously is the shorsh for all the mitzvahs that say they have to do with ben olam chavera. I understand it. What Mrs. Lysa say, our behavior between olam and chavera, perfect. What does it have to do about me putting on tefillin or keeping Shabbos? That I have Ahavas Yisrael, don't have Ahavas Yisrael? What does one have to do with the other? And he says, Kol haTorah kula. This mitzvah is like Kol HaTorah, it's the entire Torah. So the Rishonim ask, what does it mean Kol HaTorah kula? Rashi says, very shver, he says, maybe it means Lashon HaFlaga, it's a little exaggerated. Ruba Kakulai, maybe it doesn't mean Kol HaTorah kula. When it was connected to the other mitzvahs. Some say Reyacha doesn't mean your friend, it means Hashem. You find Psukim that Hashem is referring to Reyacha. But we can see that Tanya will give us a hesper how we can understand that this is the Shaj of Kol HaTorah. He'll give us two explanations how we understand this mitzvah of Abdu Kamocha, the Shaj of everything. In fact, we start our day, those who follow the Nusach HaRizal, in the morning, the Rizal says that we should start off before davening, Abdu Kamocha, is a Chal Gadol B'Torah. That part should be said. Why is that? What's so important about this that it affects all the mitzvahs that we do? Because of two reasons. One is because of what we said till now. The whole purpose, the entire Torah, the whole purpose of the Torah is to make our neshama more important than our guf. Our nefesh kiss more important than nefesh Bahamas. To rescue the nefesh kiss. That's what all the mitzvahs for. The entire Torah is to bring out and redirect us to our neshama. That's what we're learning, this whole manual of Avodas Hashem, teaching us how to do that. And when therefore, the expression of Ahavas Yisrael that's the litmus test of where we're holding in Avodas Hashem. If a person doesn't have total, absolute Ahavas Yisrael, it's not that he's missing one mitzvah. It means his whole Avodas Hashem is messed up. He's got it all wrong. He's focusing on himself. If he was selfless and his ikka was he was a godly person and not a individual, then he automatically will have the Ahavas Yisrael. That's how we determine whether we determine the Ahavas Yisrael tells us where he's holding in his Avodas Hashem. So that's one thing, that the hesper of it's a kiyum of Kol Torah Kula, because the whole purpose of Torah is to focus on the neshama. And if you don't have Ahavas Yisrael, that means you missed the boat and you have to work on reconnecting to your neshama, and Mamela you'll have the Ahavas Yisrael. A second thing is the Torah has another job purpose. Its purpose is to bring down the ruchnis to this world. Hashem put us in the world of Helam, Elam Loshen Helam. And our tafkid in the world is to bring the Gilui through Torah mitzvahs, to bring ruchnis to the world. We don't see it totally, openly yet. When Mashiach will come, the screen will be lifted. But every time we do a mitzvah, every time we learn, we're bringing kedusha into the world. We're elevating the world. But how does that kedusha come down? Also through Ahavas Yisrael. Doesn't Ahavas Yisrael have to do it coming down, putting a microphone with that Ahavas Yisrael. So he says like this. V'gam laham shechor insod baruch hu b'knesses Yisrael. The ikar of the Torah is. Oh, sorry, I skipped a line here. Ki yisod v'shorish kol ha-Torah hu. We said that. Lagbiya lahalis ha-nefesh al-guf. Mala mala adiku v'shorish kol ha-amim. We have to lift up our neshama over our guf, our selfless, godly chelik of our neshama, above our guf, our ego, our self. And that's the first tafkid. The gam, and another thing, is not everything is a ladder going up and down. Sulam Mutzavasha, as you give Shemaima. We also have to bring down. We have to lift up everything, and we have to lift up our neshama from the guf, and make that the ikar, and we'll automatically find simcha, and we'll find the Ahavas Yisrael. Those two ingredients are the key to a true Avodah Hashem. You want to look at it. If you were looking for a shidduch, and you want to know how do you know these people are Avodah Hashem, these are the two. Are they living a happy life? Do they have simcha? And do they have Ahavas Yisrael? No fighting with anybody in the shul and this, that. If they do, then there's something wrong in the Avodah Hashem part. But there's a second thing.
Wait, if they don't have those things,
There's a
then
simon
there's
that they're
something wrong?
in the yes. That means that
Okay,
they're on the
fine.
self.
I thought you were saying if they do have those things, no, too perfect, something's wrong. No, you're saying if they. No, I'm not joking. That's what I wasn't clear, so I wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now there's another thing that another aspect of the Torah is we have to bring down the kedusha to the world, the bracha to the world, the shefa, the or, and that only comes down if there's Ahavas Yisrael. Remember, we want to connect the above down here. If we're, there's no greater simcha than a prayer. We all have children, Baruch Hashem, families. There's no greater simcha than when you see the kids getting along together, playing together, helping each other out. The greatest simcha to give to the parent is the simcha of families getting along. The Bashem is not Shor Shechin in a place with his pogum, with his machloikas, with his tumeling. When? We say this every day in Shemon Esrei. The brachas come down only when we're echad. When we are echad, then the shefa will come down. If we're not echad one with another, if there's a period in Am Yisrael, then the bracha doesn't come down, the shefa doesn't come down. That tachlis of the Torah is to connect. Torah, Tefillah goes is the ladder up, and Torah brings down. Torah is supposed to bring down the kedusha to this world. The world has to be a keli to receive the kedusha. Ein kli machas bracha ela ha-shalom. Shalom is the key. That's your name.
Thank you.
Shalom is the key to hold all the bracha, and therefore, Ahavas Yisrael is essential for the Kol Torah Kula, because every mitzvah in the Torah, what are the mitzvahs in the Torah? They're all channels. Each one is a different channel to bring down shefa. Why could there be just one mitzvah? Why does Hashem have so many? 613. First of all, it certainly makes it more colorful in life, more exciting. It'd be very boring with just one mitzvah our whole lifetime. Maybe we have a Pesach, then we got to go Rosh Hashanah, Shofar, we got to want to go this, do that. We're always busy with mitzvahs, which makes life more exciting. I mean, that's not the only reason. Really, the real reason is Hashem wants to express shows Ahava in so many different ways, and therefore we have different mitzvahs, but each one is a different way of bringing down, showing Hashem's Ahava to us. It's a tzina, it's a channel connecting the above down to us, but all totally in the shlemus that we have down here to be shalom with one another, and that all depends. If we focus on the neshama, then we're selfless, then we're not limited, then our ahava doesn't have any bounds, and it's all like one.
Is there a difference between bracha to the opposite? Let's say there's something not good happening versus everything's just okay, not great, not bad, just okay. Is it like meaning if we don't have shalom and we don't have bracha, does that mean that it's possible for a bad event to happen, or there's just everything's gonna be okay, not bad,
Well,
not
if
good?
if you don't have shalom,
Yeah, like
then you can't
if
have.
bracha, for example, if there's no bracha, does that mean there's bad or is just okay?
Well, bracha comes down if there's shalom. If there's no shalom, then the bracha can't be chal there. If there's no bracha, if you see things which happen which don't seem to be bracha, that's just we may not see it right now. Some guy may have a setback. My son told me the other day he had some deal, had something, and it didn't work out. But the next day something 10 times better came in. You don't know what the bracha is.
So the lack of bracha definitely isn't bad.
No, because we don't see. We can't really. Depends what glasses you. Everything is good. Everything else is good. We don't always see it. We want to see it boy from Golui, but really, if we take a step back and see our whole life and see it from the way Hashem is running it, we see everything is good and everything is really a bracha. Every setback that we have is a step to grow, allow us to grow. But Pashtus, if we really want bracha, which is where Hashem wants us to ask for bracha, He wants us to daven, He wants us to have a better life, He wants us to turn to Him and ask Him to send us parnasa and health and take away some of the nisyanis. We can grow without having the nisyanis. It's all totally on us. We call the shots. We press all the buttons. People don't realize that we just went through Pesach, that we're in the control center of everything. Because Hashem does Midah Keneged Midah. I was just preparing for the day after. I said that whole project, what we'll have when Mashiach comes. And I think I mentioned last time, one of the things is that there'll be a Mechemes Gog Magog, where Hashem will be taking out the come on all the Rishon and the guy from all the generations. They're going to come back to be punished for all the things that they did to us. Why is that? I mean, Hashem Kel Kanev and came, but really Hashem is a good guy. Why do we focus on the punishments? Why is that a big thing when Mashiach comes? Because Hashem is our Father, and a father and parents, and Hashem is Midah Keneged Midah. What they did to us in Mitzrayim, they went way beyond the call of duty. So Hashem gave 10 markers in every detail. Mizeh Keneged Zeh. You put the Jews through this and you made them do that, now you get it back. That's how Hashem runs the show. And Bracha also. The way we behave, that's how we bring down the Shefa. But the Baal Tanya is telling us that if we focus on the Neshama, and we have that obviously Yisrael without limits to every single Jew, and don't look at them as a separate thing, look as we're all part of one goal, then the bracha will come down. It's guaranteed to come down. I think I'm gonna have to stop on the last part. We'll leave for the next time. The last part we're gonna ask a question. There's sometimes people where we have to push away from, and we'll see how if they're not acting the right way, and we'll see how to handle that. But Pashut, at this point now, we leave off that the only way to really bring down the bracha is by having shalom. It's an interesting thing here, yeah.
Rabbi, if Hashem is with the good is because Hashem intentionally made everything good, whether we see it or not. So if there's no shalom, which means that, as we said before, that means the Shekhinah can't rest there. So if the Shekhinah can't rest there, then how is it possible for things to be okay and not bad if Hashem can't be there?
Well, if the person chooses the Bechira to do the wrong thing, then he's going to need a different type of Hanhaga to get him back on path. So Hashem may have to give him a Nisayah to wake him up, a wake-up call. Like someone told me yesterday, he just came from Israel, Rabbi Segel told him that what October 7th accomplished in Eretz Yisrael, 50% of the Jews in Israel, secular Jews, have committed themselves to some part of Kiyum HaMitzvot from that time to now. 50%.
Really? Wow.
Not like what it says in the newspapers or in the media, in the secular media, but 50%. That no Rosh Hashiva, Gadol, or Sefer was able to bring back so many people from just this wake-up call. Sometimes we rather do it in a nice way and be ahead of the game and choose the right way. But the interesting thing about the ahava to a wife, bring that out, also Ava Atzmius. and it's a very interesting halacha. The difference between a wife is in a certain way unique over even children. As Chazal say that ishta kegufay, and there's a halachic ramification. You know, by pidyon shvuyim, there's certain halachas about pidyon shvuyim. You're not supposed to ransom someone more than the value that on the slave market. I don't know if there's a slave market today, but if there was one, you have to do within reason. Now I know this is people's emotions. I'm not saying that it's wrong. The emotions are coming from a good place, but it's not Torah-dik emotions. But in Eretz Yisrael, the idea of giving back, releasing terrorists to say whatever they do or put people at risk, not so posh. There's halachas about these things. But Meir Rodenberg was one of the greatest Gedolei Rishonim. Wouldn't allow himself to be ransomed because you cannot encourage Goyim to kidnap. So there's guidelines about that, and there's limitations. But it doesn't apply to one's wife. When you sign the ksuba, in the ksuba, it's in Aramaic, so you probably don't know it. But it says in there that if your wife is taken prison or whatever, if you have to ransom your wife, you're mechuyev to pay 10 times the value, but you could pay everything if you want. You get even more. The obligation, 10 times the amount. For anyone else, for your children, your parents, just the value. The wife is different because she's part of it. That's a talk. This is Gzeres HaKosov, that the wife is so inherently part of the person. Just like a person, to ransom himself, he could give every dollar that he has to save himself. His wife is in that category. We obligate 10 times the amount, but he could give everything too.
Would a person be allowed to trade themselves for their wife's freedom?
There's a sefer called Shaz Shuz Mima Makim. It was written by Rabbi Ephraim Oshri. Anybody heard of him?
Yeah.
He was a rabbi in the ghetto in Europe. And he had to paskin Shaz. There's 4 volumes. I think they put out an abridged version in English. I don't have it, but I remember as a Bacha, I had these 4 volumes, or Shima used to bring it down. What happened was he was in the Kovna ghetto, and the Kovna Rav died in the middle of the war. This young Rav Oshri, he's living in the Lower East Side. I met him. He wrote Shas or Shuvas that were asked in the middle of the war about things like that. Like one guy was able to rescue his child. There were 1,000 children taken out to be killed, and if he paid off the soldier, he could get his kid out. But the Germans were exact; they knew exactly how many. So if they took his kid out, the guy would have to take another Jewish child to be mashlim the 1,000. So he asked the Shah, is he allowed to bribe the guy to save his kid? And the Rav told him, I can't answer this question. There's so many crazy shahs in this thing. Certain questions you can't not answer. And questions like that, it's very, very interesting thing. Just on the side, I'll tell you, if you learn Shulchan Aruch, there's so many different topics. There's one topic that has very, very little written on it, and it's an essential topic. It's called Hilchos Kiddush Hashem. What do you have to do if your life is put at risk? And there are a lot of shilas that you see if you read in history. You read the Beryl Wine's books, or you read the history, you'll see that there's a big question. There's a person, Masada. You ever go to Masada? Right? You read the story. People gave up their lives. They killed the lives of children and families. They shouldn't be taken by the goyim and tortured or taken off the derech. How does that work? And there's 2 different views. There's certain views that hold that it's Yereg Val Yavar, and there's a lot of unclarity in how these things work. Like in your question, and I think the reason is because there's no answer for these things. It depends on the person hergish. The connection to Hashem is absolute. If a person feels that he's going to be doing something that's going to break his connection, then he has to be Rosh Nefesh no matter what. I didn't want to exactly define all the scenarios because you have to leave it for the situation as it is. This person at the end, Rav Ashi writes, he said, you know what, if you can't give me an answer, I don't have a heter to rescue my child, then I'm not going to bribe the guy, and the child was killed. And he said after he had tremendous simcha, he felt like Avram Avinu, bring his kid to Akedah, because I wasn't going to violate the Torah's, what's another Torah. If I didn't get a psak, I'm allowed to do that. I didn't rescue the kid. So these type of questions that, but a wife you got to take care of, which means that.
Which is interesting. I don't want to be the killjoy here, but the kid, you can't unkid your kid.
You could.
You're not allowed to arrest ransom by halacha. Mikra Adin, if someone had a shav, they said if a child was kidnapped and they want $10 million and he's only worth $500 in the state market, you're not allowed to pay more.
Right, but a wife is the only one that you can sever the relationship.
But
by
why?
halacha.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's not chaining, it's ishta kugufa.
Right.
Interesting that thinking about the dynamic.
Yeah. But Lamaisa, bottom line is that we have to treat, the wife is like the second part of oneself. I was reading a story of, what was it? Which God, one of the Bali Musa was invited to someone's house for Shabbos, who it was, and the guy, the wife set up the table for Shabbos, and she had this one of the greatest Bali Musa ever, Slanta, and she forgot to cover the challahs. So the husband came home, and he said, "Huh?" So his wife, why didn't you yell at her? Why didn't you cover? Why isn't the challahs covered? So she was embarrassed. She quickly ran to the kitchen and she covered it all. So, as we saw Slanta, if it was a different Rav, he said to the man, he says, "You know why he covered the challah?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Because we're making kiddush on the wine, and really supposed to make the bracha on mazonos or bread before the wine. So it's going to get embarrassed if we do it. So we cover it, she'll get embarrassed." So, let me ask you something. Do you think that the bread is really embarrassed? And he said, "Well, what about what you just did? You just embarrassed the wife. You got the whole thing wrong." But they took your goofy. So, bottom line is, we leave at this part of the parak that we have to look at every yid and look at their neshama. And the neshama is mafatel, then all the other negative things go away. And if they help the neshama, and as Hashem, then we get the Bocheinu Avinu, which will have brachas, and we have to see Yeshua's and Klal Yisrael.
Nefesh, what do we have? Chesed Shebenetzach, Netzach Shebechesed.
Today's Chesed Shebenetzach.
Chesed Shebenetzach. You have to do a share, maybe a little bit of that. Should talk a little bit about that, maybe one share.
I give a share that at 10 to 5 in the morning if you want.
Is it recorded? What? Is it recorded?
No.
We get a little repeat.
The Rambam says that it's an exaggeration.